Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I'm going to be getting started shortly in about 1 minute. I just got to double check and make sure all the technology stuff is correct. Mm. All right, all right. Hello, beautiful people. It is me, Tasha K with Gotta Stay, and I am so excited, a little bit nervous to be going live after so long. It has almost been a year since I've gone live, and I wanted to come on here and talk today about why I stopped budgeting in the way that I used to. And the reason that I think that this conversation is so important is because when I first started as a financial coach, which was um, over 10 years ago, I came in and I was so excited to focus on budgeting. And I was excited to help people with their budget. And that was the primary conduit that I was using to help people achieve financial freedom. And nobody could tell me nothing about it. I knew that budgeting was going to be the entry point to help people reach their financial goals. And the reason that I knew it is because it had worked for me. When I first started my financial journey, I was 10 years old and I started with a notebook where I basically created some type of budget system. I went to Dollar Tree back when they were still a dollar. I got me a notebook and I went to work. Every single day, I would write down how much money came in and how much money went out. And this gave me such an intimate understanding of my finances and how money operates. And it taught me so many financial lessons along the way just from taking that one little action. So I went on to work for corporate America, managing $100 million budgets for some of the biggest brands in the world. And still, guess what I had to do? I had to budget $100 million budgets. And one of the things that I will tell you about these big corporations is they are planning things down to the penny. They are not planning about their money at all. And so I'm thinking, yes, absolutely, budgeting is the way. Very clear about that. No questions about that. It's helped me in my personal life. It's helped me get to where I am today. It's the reason that I don't have to worry about money today. And it's helping these big corporations. They're focused on their budgets. Every single analyst is responsible for their own budget. I mean, and when I say down to the penny, that's what I mean. Every single penny has to be accounted for. So I was very clear that budgeting was something that was important for people. So then I left my job in corporate America and I decided that I was going to take financial freedom to the masses, specifically Black people. Because what I was noticing in corporate America was that a lot of us were first generation corporate. We were for first generation college. We had all of this money for the first time and we didn't know what to do with it. And we didn't know how to invest. We didn't know how to put money in a 401k. We didn't have emergency funds. And what I saw was that if we don't do something about this, It doesn't matter if we're first generation corporate. It doesn't matter if we're the first generation to have all of this money if we don't know what to do with it. So when my job was getting on my last nerve, that's when I went and started a business. And I started a business that was pretty much focused on helping people budget and create financial plans that I just knew were going to completely change their lives and take them to the next financial level. However, this is where things get tricky. It did not take me long to realize that people didn't love budgeting as much as I did. Where you can give me a budget and I'm excited. I'm ready to stick to it. I already know like this is the thing that's going to get me to the other side of my financial goals and I'm locked in and I'm ready. We're going to do this. But when I would create financial plans for my clients, they didn't stick to it. Like I'm thinking back now to all of the excitement and the energy that I had in creating these beautiful budgets and these beautiful goals and these beautiful financial plans. And then I would give them to my clients only for them to stick to it for 3 business days. And then they would come back and I would look at their finances and very little had changed. And so I could see with my own eyes, right? With my own 2 eyes inside of my head, I could see that for the majority of people who were coming to me, budgeting just wasn't working for them. It wasn't something that they were excited about. It wasn't something that they wanted to do. But rather than accept what I could see with my eyes, that budgeting was not doing the thing that I had employed it to do, it was not working. But I didn't accept that because how could I accept that, right? Like in my mind, but also not just in my mind, in my client's mind, we all thought that budgeting was supposed to work. We all thought that if it didn't work, that just meant that you had to try harder. And that's what we did. We went harder. We got more focused. We created more accountability. We got accountability partners. We put time on the calendar. We checked in more. We started doing all the things. And it still wasn't getting us the maximum results that I knew that we were capable of. And I couldn't figure out why. Why is it that I'm creating the budget? I'm providing support for the budget. And then I said, you know what I'm probably missing? I'm probably missing the mindset aspect. Maybe that's the thing that's not there. And so, what I started to do was I started to help my clients reframe how they think about budgeting. Now, these were people who were making anywhere from $30,000 a year to $130,000 plus a year. So there was a huge range of income. And it didn't matter how much money they were making. Although I will say, my clients who were making less, they were saving more. My clients who were making more, they were saving less. And that was a whole other conundrum in and of itself. But none of them were reaching their full financial potential. And as I was reframing, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm doubling down. We're going to start looking at the values. What are your values? What are the values behind the finances that will help you stay focused? Because I just knew if I got you connected to your why, if I got you connected to the things that you say that you value, this is going to help crack the code on you being more consistent. And that did not do the trick either. And so I said, you know what? I need to not only connect them to their values, but I need to connect them to their future outcomes as well. That is going to be the thing that works. And if you have ever tried anything like this, if you've tried budgeting and you like planning and you know you're smart and you know you're capable, but none of these little strategies were working, let me know in the chat because I know that my clients are not the only ones who are going through this. And when I say going through it, I mean we were going through it. Imagine having access to a financial plan and knowing what that plan is going to do for you, but still running into trouble when it comes to execution. So that's why you guys are in my confessional today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All of that, that was just the preamble. Today, I want to talk about why I stopped budgeting in the way that I did when I first started. So, welcome, 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 everybody. Today, you're going to get to hear me share why I'm not as connected to budgeting from a business standpoint. Now, personally, I'm a budget girl. I love budgeting. It is exciting to me. It is thrilling to me. And I love the opportunity to put down on paper something that I want to bring into fruition in the future. I love it. However, as a business tool, I have really repositioned it inside of my business because here's the thing that people don't want to say. And I don't know why. I don't know why we as a financial community don't want to be honest about this, but the reality is that for the majority of people, for the vast majority of people, budgeting doesn't work and it hasn't worked through time. Okay, let me know what you think. If you're like, girl, I've been feeling that way, or if you're like me and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, budgeting absolutely works for me. I want to know because so many people like they're on their 77th iteration of their budget and they still haven't figured out a way to stick to it. And not only have they not figured out a way to stick to it, but they will create it and then have it in mind for 3 business days and then forget all about it. It's just gone out the window, not even thinking about it, not even on the radar. And so I realized that I had to take a different approach because, as a whole, I feel like we have been misled. We have been misled when it comes to our finances, when it comes to how to handle our finances, and especially when it comes to how to grow our finances. A lot of people will say that saving is not the key or saving is not the answer to building wealth, but saving is a huge foundation. It's not going to be the thing that gets you to the top, but it is a huge foundation of managing your finances. And if you don't know how to accomplish that in real life, then it's going to be very difficult for you to progress. And what I have observed over the 10 plus years that I have been a financial coach is that people will get stuck just in the process of trying to figure out how to save, that they don't even have an opportunity to progress further than that. They spend all of their time and energy trying to figure out, how do I become a person who captures my financial resources instead of letting it all go? And so I think we have to be honest. The very first thing that we have to do is to be honest about the fact that traditional budgeting has failed us, which makes sense, right? Because when you think about it, in order for your budget to be successful, you're going to have to tell yourself no, 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 no a lot of the time, right? Yeah. And nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to live a life that is full of lack. And the reality is that you're not telling yourself no all the time, but that's what it feels like. Your brain isn't paying attention to all of the times that your budget has allowed you to say yes. It's paying attention to all of the times that it has forced you to say no. And now you develop an unhealthy, toxic relationship with your budget. And so today I'm going to share with you all of the things about why I think we have to rethink traditional budgeting. And the very first question the first question was, why did I decide to stop teaching traditional budgeting? And the answer is simple, is because it doesn't work. And if you type a question and I miss it, oh, Oh, budgeting has worked for me. Okay, I love it. I want to know, like, what are some strategies that you use that did work for you? And I love that because that means that we're on the same page, because I personally love budgeting. It's just that as a tool for consistent use, it hasn't produced what I wanted it to produce for my clients. And that actually brings me straight into the second question, which is, how can that be true? How can it be true that budgeting doesn't work for the vast majority of people? I have seen the results that you posted. I've seen the results that you've had in your personal life, and I've seen the results that other people have had with budgeting. So, how can it be the case that budgeting doesn't work? And I'm so glad you asked. So during the course of this conversation, it's going to be like a personal interview. Some of my favorite ways to share information is through a question and allowing the question to illuminate the answer. So when we look at how is it possible that budgeting doesn't work? I think one of the first things that I want us to consider is the fact that a lot of the ways that we operate in our society were built for the betterment and the support and the upliftment of men. And that's wonderful. Nothing wrong with that. I love that for them. But I do think that there are so many structures in our society that do not work with how women operate on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so that's number one. I think, like, when I'm looking at how women are operating, they struggle with having to say no to themselves day in and day out. And there are some times where these structures work, and there are some times where it doesn't. I think that it's easy to use a budget for something that has a short window. So if you have a specific time period for when you're going to be budgeting and what you're going to be doing, like if we're doing a 30-day challenge, that is an area where you are probably going to be able to thrive. However, if we're talking about making lifestyle changes that are going to last for the foreseeable future, that is where it begins to be challenging. And for me, I'm not telling you what I think, I'm not telling you what I believe. Quite the contrary. This is not my reality personally, but I'm telling you what I have observed in hundreds of women that I have coached on a one on one basis. And the final thing that I want to say in terms of how can I say that this is something that doesn't work when my clients have gotten so many incredible results. They've been able to save 10,000 to 30,000 plus annually. They've been able to travel the world. They've been able to quit their job. They've been able to take sabbaticals. They've been able to start businesses. They've been able to start homesteading. They have been able to do a lot of things. And so it's like a lot of nerve for me to come on here and say that budgeting doesn't work. And people don't like it when I say that, but I think that it needs to be said, and it needs to be said plainly, because we have to stop relying on a sheet of paper and a spreadsheet and thinking that it's going to have the impact that we need it to have in our lives. But the reason that I can say that is because despite the results that I see my clients getting, and despite what I'm sharing with you, the reality is in the background, I know what was possible. So, yes, they may have saved $30,000 when their salary was $160,000 or $130,000 after taxes. So the $30,000 is, I mean, leaps and bounds above what the average American is doing, but it's nowhere near what the potential was. And so I'm talking about this from the perspective of, why is it that we're falling so short of our financial potential? Why is it that when we get to tax season and people are able to see how much money they made throughout the year, they don't know where it went? Even though they might have a little bit of money in the bank, even though they might have some money in investments, there's a huge chunk of change that is falling through the cracks. And that is the money that I want to get my hands on for you. There are so many financial coaches and financial advisors who are okay with you saving 5% a year or you saving 10% a year. I'm not okay with that, especially for a community who is significantly disenfranchised and who needs to be saving significant portions in order to catch up, or in order to be able to have something meaningful and significant to pass down, to be able to build and create a legacy. So with that being said, I'm watching a lot of my counterparts. I'm watching the conversations that they are having with people, and the savings rate that they are going after is oftentimes 5% or 10% or at most 15%. I'm looking for a much more aggressive strategy that feels easy. And so that's why I say that budgeting doesn't work. It's not to say that my clients are not saving money or that they're not investing. It's really just to say that they're not reaching their full potential, nowhere near it, nowhere close. And while a lot of people might not care about what the potential is as long as there's money in the bank, I actually do. I actually do. And the reason, another reason, outside of just you being able to secure a legacy, another reason that I think is so important is because I want you to be unmessable with. I want to make sure that these companies are not able to play with you. The government isn't able to play with you. Inflation isn't able to play with you. You are not beholden to what is going on in the world around you. And one of the biggest ways that you can secure yourself is to make sure that your finances are in order. But you are not going to be able to do that if you think that budgeting is the answer and you're only fulfilling a small fraction of your full financial potential. So the third question that I have is, how did you come to this conclusion that budgeting isn't the answer? And in order to answer that, I'm going to walk you through an acronym that I call RDE. These are the three things that alerted me to the fact that budgeting was not going to be the answer for the majority of my clients. And I would say that 80% of my clients, budgeting is not the answer, and 20% of my clients are like me. And budgeting is like absolutely the answer for us. Um, but for that 80%, I couldn't ignore them because what was happening is I was trying to create budget after budget, plan after plan, reframe after reframe. And they were like, girl, it's not happening. And so what led me to this conclusion is three different things. I have a budget, and I'm gonna read this comment real quick. I have a budget and I try to follow it, but it seems like the kids always need things or something financial comes up, like a car issue, something needs fixed in the house, living above my means, question mark. Hey, Paula girl. Welcome. I'm so happy to see you. Happy to put a face with a name. And as I was going through this process and thinking about budgeting, it's really funny that you would mention this because children was a category that continued to come up for me. And we love the kids. We love the kids. And we want to make sure that we're allowing them to have the type of life that they deserve. But the kids are on a budget too, baby. We're not the only ones who are on a budget. The kids are too. But as we are thinking about how do we restructure this conversation about budgeting, that applies to kids as well. Because and you'll see what I mean by that probably tomorrow when I start talking about what a regulated budget looks like. But the kids are part of this regulation as well. How old are your kids, by the way? That might help me because um but um financial things coming up like car issues and you know all of this is going to be stuff that we talk about tomorrow, because the question is, if we're not using a traditional budget, then how are we creating abundance inside of our life? How are we creating this? Where's the surplus coming from? And that actually is a good segue into why the three reasons why I realized that budgeting didn't work in the first place. And the first one was restriction. Every single time I would talk to a client and they would share with me what they and I would ask them, like, how is budgeting for you? How do you feel about budgeting? The very first word that would come up was restriction. Almost every single person felt like their budget was restricting. It didn't allow them to do the things that they wanted to do. It didn't allow them to handle emergencies that they felt was coming up. It didn't give them any buffer to be able to enjoy their lives, and they didn't like it. Now, mind you, I didn't create the budget. They created the budget. And they created the budget, but they still felt restricted. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how much I want somebody to stick to their budget. It doesn't matter how much I can see. The math is gonna math. Once I create the budget, I can tell you what your financial future is going to look like in 12 months. And when I create a budget, I've already built in the emergencies that are going to happen. I've already built in the fact that unexpected things are going to come up and the kids are going to need things that you didn't factor in. So when I create a budget, I'm very confident in what that 12-month plan looks like. However, if somebody feels restricted, it doesn't matter because they're not going to stick to it. They're not going to do it. It's not always on purpose. I like to say that a lot of times clients just quietly quit. They quietly quit on their budgets. And so when a budget is restricting, it's not going to work. And here's the thing. Budgets are always restricting, just by their very nature. It's like if you're on a road and the road has guardrails on it, everything outside of that guardrail is just not on the road. The guardrails are there to make sure you get safely to the other side, but you still can't go outside them. And that's where the restriction comes in. Even though the guardrails are there for your safety, there's this restriction that's there. So even though the budget is there to help you create the future that you want to do, the fact that the budget is there now makes you feel like there's something restricting. Now in your mind, even though you are the one who created this budget, the fact that it's there now, it feels like restriction. And your brain is not going to relate to that as something that it can be consistent with. The second thing that I noticed, which is controversial when I say it, but it's not controversial for me because I see it every day. The second thing the second reason that I knew that budgeting in its traditional form was not going to be something that was sustainable for my clients was because of discipline. Discipline is great for starting, but it is awful for finishing. As soon as discipline enters the chat, that should be a warning to you that you need some additional structures in place in order to be successful. Discipline, the need for discipline is a sign for the majority of people that failure is near. Now, I don't feel like that with my budget, so I can't relate. But you know where I can relate? When it comes to working out. When it comes to working out, I know as soon as I want to rely on discipline, that's my indication that I actually need to rely on something else. Maybe I need an accountability partner. Maybe I need somebody to call and motivate me. Maybe I need to have a conversation. But whenever I feel like that discipline is necessary, it's actually an indication that I need a person there to help me through this hard time. Because if I try to force it, if I try to muscle my way through, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work. 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work. So the reason I can be successful with my budget is because it's not that hard for me. It actually doesn't really require a high level of discipline. It requires a little bit of discipline, but not that much for me. But for the majority of people, it requires a lot of discipline. And as soon as the discipline enters the chat, that is a sign that this isn't about to work for much longer. So I knew that because the majority of people need discipline in order to stick to their budgets because their lives are not set up to support their budget, then it's not going to work. They need something else. And the final thing that let me know that this is not going to work was exhaustion. Me and my clients were, they were creating the budgets. I was reviewing and refining the budgets. And we were doing this inside of a space where we had a lot of energy. We were excited. The momentum was going and building. We were ready to go. However, inside of your day-to-day life, you're not always like that. And so the question is, how are you going to engage with your budget when you're feeling exhausted? How are you going to engage with your budget when you're feeling tired? How are you going to engage with it when you've been working all day? How are you going to engage with it when for the last 2 weeks you've had to stay late? How are you going to engage with it when you feel sick and you're not at your best? Okay, how are you going to engage with your budget when you're at a different point in your cycle and you are a completely different person? You are not even the person that you were when you made the budget, and now you're expected to stick to it. the exhaustion, the different mental state, the ebbs and flows and fluctuations of your cycles, the different places that you're in, the different seasons, summer, winter, spring, fall, all of that is going to play into whether or not you're going to be able to stick to your budget. And at the end of the day, you're going to not stick to your budget a lot more than you're going to stick to your budget for the majority of people. Now, I will say that there is a sweet spot for me that I have noticed. Clients who are able to stick to their budget for 60 days, they start to see the impact of that. And once they see the impact of that, they start to get addicted, and then you can't tell them nothing. However, most people don't last 7 business days with their budget. If you can last 60 days, you're going to get addicted. That's me, and that might be some of you. If you can last 60 days, you're going to become addicted. But here's the thing, if you last 60 days, it's because you already knew that you needed to restructure your life in order to match the budget. A lot of people just structure their budget and they think that their life is magically going to follow. It's not. So those people who stuck with it week after week and they realize, dang, I failed my budget this week. Dang, I failed my budget this week. Okay, I need to do something different. All right, I stuck to my budget a little better this week. I need to do something different again next week so I can be even better. And then I'm going to do something different next week so that I can be even better. And those people who stick with this 60 days, whether they were conscious of it or not, whether they knew that this was the cheat code or not, they conformed their life to match the budget. They didn't just assume that their budget was naturally going to conform to their life. And those are the people who get really who get obsessed with budgeting. And that's my favorite. I love an obsessed budgeter. But that's okay because I'm also obsessed with planning my life. I'm also obsessed with organizing my life. I'm also obsessed with making sure that I run my life in a way that's going to give me the type of wealth and abundance that I'm after. And that is actually what works for the majority of people. Number 4, and we're almost done. Number 4, did this approach hurt or hinder clients? So when I was trying to force my clients to stick to a budget, did it hinder their progress or did it hurt their progress? And they didn't know it, but the answer is yes, it did. It did. And the reason that I know this is because my clients have to submit their numbers every week. And I can see what their savings look like every single week. And I went and tracked it for over 100 of my clients to look to see at what periods of my teaching were they saving the most money. And so I can clearly see that during those times where I was hyper focused on budgeting, financial planning, setting goals, they saved less. They saved less money. During those periods where I shifted the focus towards the thing that I have now come to realize is more productive, which we'll talk about in detail tomorrow, when I switched my focus to a more regulated financial system, a more calm financial system. When I did that, instead of having them be in go mode all the time, their savings almost doubled or more. And they didn't realize what was happening. And I didn't realize what was happening until I went back and tracked. So that's why I can come and say unapologetically that I know that budgeting doesn't work, because it's not a belief that I had. It's just the data that was presented to me. I know that for some of us it does, but for a lot of us it doesn't. And I think that I want to be very, very disruptive about that and very, very clear about that, because if we think that we're going to be able to rely on traditional budgeting and rely on discipline, we're cutting ourselves short by at least 50%. So, but here's the crazy thing. So did it hurt my clients? Did it hinder them? Absolutely it did. But I don't regret it, because that's where we were. We were in it together. We were in survival mode together. We were in go mode together. When I tried to tell them, okay, we're going to shift a little bit away from budgeting, they about had a fit. They didn't like budgeting. They didn't want to budget, but they thought that was what was going to work, because we have been trained and conditioned to believe that the harder we work, the more results we get. And if we're not getting results, we should try harder. We should go faster. We should do more. We should focus more. We need a new planner or a new this or a new that or a better spreadsheet. This is how we have been trained. We have been trained that the harder we work, the better results we will get. And what I have found specifically for women, because I do work with men as well, and they don't have none of these problems. Like they're much better able to stick to the budget. Okay. I set the plan, they follow the plan, they come back. I clearly see where they followed the plan. It's wonderful. And some of my women clients are like that too, like me. But the majority are not. They are impulse spenders, they're emotional spenders. When things aren't going their way, they want to spend, and I get it. And they are, they're moving in accordance with their ebbs and their flows and their cycles, and I get it, and it's okay. And what I realize is that we need a different way and we need a different approach. However, what I'm trying to communicate to you right now is that people don't realize it and they don't want it. They don't want a different approach because they have been programmed and conditioned to work hard. All right. And so the fifth question, should we stop using force in our financial plan? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, and here's what I recommend. I recommend that you stop using force and you start using flow. And I'm going to go more into what flow is tomorrow. But here's what I would recommend. Every single time in your life where you feel like you want to force your finances, I want you to consider, how can you bring more flow into this area? Because the areas of your life that flow are the areas of your life that are going to save you money exponentially. For some reason, we are only able to see money as a dollar or a dollar sign. I don't know who tricked us into only seeing money as a dollar, even though we clearly say that time is money. We don't really have that understanding that time is literally money. Energy is literally currency. And we're so focused on the dollar bills, what's going to make us a dollar, that we don't focus on the time and the energy and the capacity. And this is the true essence of wealth for the majority of women. Time, energy, presence, and capacity. These are the things that have the energetic signature of wealth for the majority of women. And the dollar sign, don't get me wrong, we're definitely coming for the dollar sign, but it is downstream of those four things. You first have to have those four things in order to be able to build a solid financial foundation for wealth and then grow and amass the type of wealth that you want. And the reason for that is, for women, we have to be able to turn off in order to turn up. And the reason for that is, when you turn off, that is the time where you're regenerating. That is the time where you're growing. That is the time where you're leveraging your creativity. When you're turned off, that is the time where you can see opportunity. That is the time where you have more clarity. It's when you're turned off. But a lot of us never turn off. Even when we're sleeping, we're still turned on, and we're constantly buzzing, and our brains are humming all the time. And we have idea after idea. And when we're sleeping, we're thinking about the things that we need to handle the next day. And there's a reason for that. It's because your brain is very interconnected. The hemispheres of your brain are very connected, and they're firing all over the place. You're overstimulated. You haven't had the chance to turn off. You know how, I keep my MacBook on most of the time, but sometimes I just turn it off for no reason. Just let it rest. Just let it rest, let it reset. I don't know what's going on inside the computer, but I know that there are some things that it needs to wipe the memory. I don't know what I'm talking about, but you know what I'm talking about? You have to turn off. You have to give your body and your brain a chance to recover, a chance to rejuvenate. Your memory, your memory is solidified while you sleep, not while you're awake. So I forgot what question I was answering. Should we stop using force? Yes, we should stop using force, and we should learn how to rest. And we should appreciate rest as a moneymaker. As a moneymaker. It might sound crazy, but I want you to look for it in your life. Rest and flow and organization for you, those are money makers. If it makes you more time, if it gives you more energy, if it allows you to be more present, or if it increases your capacity, it is a moneymaker. And then number 6, this is the last thing that I'm going to just say, and I'm going to leave you with this. Stop allowing the simple things in your life to be hard. And if there is a bottleneck in your life, address it. And so, if we're talking about that, I'm not teaching budgeting in the traditional way that I used to. I'm not teaching it like numbers on a page. I'm not teaching it like a spreadsheet. Not doing that anymore. And where we want to look instead is in your life. We want to look at creating your budget. Your life becomes the playground for your budget. Your budget becomes a part of the fabric of your life. And one of the ways that you can maximize your financial potential is by not accepting that there are things in your life that have to feel stuck. And when you feel that stuckness, address it. And with that being said, like, let me see, 15 and 19, I forgot to address this. So 15 and 19 are wonderful ages to allow your children to be your teenagers, your adult child and your teenage child. This is a wonderful time to allow them to be in on the budgeting conversation. This is a wonderful time to pass on financial strategies to them. A lot of times it's our instinct to want to protect them from financial conversations, but they are at that age now, 15 and 19, where, they are starting to create their own financial narratives. They should they're starting to create their own financial systems, and they're going to be looking to you to be the leader of that. So if you don't have a financial system, they won't either. If you don't have, if you're not setting up your life to support your finances, they won't either. So the conversations that you need to have with your teenagers are simply around, this is what our lives can support right now, and this is what it takes for us to get to that next level, and this is what we're doing, and this is what we're working on, and get buy-in from them, get them excited about it too, and get them excited about their financial future and what you're doing to help them secure their financial future. Because if you start having these conversations with them now, they won't ever have to worry about their finances again. Like, by the time they're in their 30s and 40s, they won't have to worry about money if you start helping them with their finances now. So even though it can feel like, the kids always need something and things are always coming up, make them a part of that global conversation, because it is a learning opportunity for them. And with that being said, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate every single person who was here with me during my very first live in almost a year. And I'll be back tomorrow, just to solidify and really talk through some of the ways that traditional budgeting has failed us and what we can look forward to in the future. So tomorrow we'll be talking about, how do you create a regulated budget that's not really a budget? That's what I'm going to be talking about. So thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow.